Well, hello, welcome to the channel. My name's Johnny, and you're watching Hillbilly Modeling. So this is a continuation of our build series here on our Lindberg Diesel Tug. So this is going to be part 10, and in this part, we're going to start working on the superstructure. We hadn't touched that yet. In the last video, we finished up our the hull and fitting out the hull with the towing machine and the bits and the fenders and the anchor and all that good stuff. So yeah, let's go ahead and jump down to the bench and get started on the superstructure. All right, so let's prep our superstructure here for painting. Now I'm using some of that 3M double stick mounting tape here, stuck to the top of a medicine bottle. And I am just going to use that on the inside here to help us hold that entire assembly there. That way we're not crushing our rails that we spent so much time building much earlier on in the build here. And that will hold it securely. I just want to make sure it doesn't fall over. Also, on the back of our bridge section, there is a little spot there where I can put the clip to hold that while painting, and it won't be seen because it's going to be in behind some other structure and stuff on that upper deck, so that'll be okay. And of course, we need to be able to paint our handrails and our ladders and all that, and using masking, or not masking, well, yeah, painter's mask tape rolled inside out will help hold all that for us. So we're going to be painting our superstructure and our handrails and everything this glossy white. Now this is craft paint, and I have mixed it up for my airbrush. Now I did mix 2 little jars up here. I have found that if I mix more than half a jar, then I end up pouring it everywhere when I'm putting it in my airbrush. So yeah, we're ready to go now that we're thinned out for our airbrush, because those acrylic paints can be kind of thick. So we want to start our painting here just like you're painting a car or something. You want to start past the surface and then run your airbrush across it. Don't start in the middle of whatever you're painting because you may end up with some splotches and stuff, and we don't want any of that. And white can be a little bit difficult to paint. I have found in the past that oftentimes I get runs, and it's because it's really hard to see your coverage, and you may concentrate too much on one spot, and then you'll end up with a run, and we don't want to do that. So we'll paint up the lower portion, or the cabin portion here of our superstructure, just going over it very lightly, and then once we have that first coat on, we will switch up to the bridge section here, and we'll put a light coat on that as well. And after we get a good coat on, not putting it on too heavy now, we will switch up and go to our ladders and our handrails and everything else that we've selected that we want to be painted white. And then we just kind of rotate through these items, and we'll go back to the lower superstructure or the cabin area, put another coat on it, and keep cycling through each and every one of these until we get a good coverage on everything. Now, while we're waiting for that to cure, we have some items here that we need to paint black, and that would be like our flagpole and our main mast here, along with the funnel, and we have some placards there. It goes on the side of the bridge, and our navigation lights and stuff like that. So we're going to paint those up, and those are all done in black. So this is the black that I've chosen here, and it's a satin, which we'll see how that works out. And I've mixed it up for the airbrush, of course, because these craft paints are a little thick, and you just need to be careful when you're mixing these up so that you don't get it too thin. When it comes to the funnel, yeah, we're going to spray up the inside there. We don't want any of that white to be seen from above once the model is assembled, so we'll put us a coat of that black on the inside, and then we can go ahead and cover the exterior of the funnel. And it does look a little blotchy, but that's okay. In all actuality, this paint is really covering well. I'm kind of impressed with it here. I'm just not going to go too heavy on it because we don't want any runs. Runs are bad. So once we get that covered, and as you can see here how easily it sprays, I just want to be very careful that we're not building up too much paint there on any particular surface. And then we'll go ahead and paint all the other little items there that we've selected that need to be black as well. And I just want to say that this Folk Art multi-surface satin water-based acrylic really covers nicely. I mean, I couldn't have expected to get a better finish out of this. I mean, it looks really nice. So we're not going to have to go back and do a gloss coat on this, I don't think. So that looks really good. So next up, we have some items here that we need to paint, like our binnacle and the post for the ship's wheel. And of course, we also have our doors here, all of which I want to do in a wood grain. So we're going to use a base coat here of this khaki that I have left over from a previous build. Yeah, that is also a craft paint, water-based, which I get excellent results. Now, you don't have to use craft paints. That's fine. Use whatever you like. I think that using this particular color here gives us a good base for doing our wood graining and stuff, which we'll be doing later on. So we're going to want this to cure for us, and we'll just get a nice coat on everything there. Sorry, I was just about out of frame there. But all of these, we will get these painted up in that nice, and you could use a sand color, you know, or any natural wood color will work fine, just as long as it's a light color. Now, before we clean our airbrush, we want to make sure that we got all of our edges painted nicely there, just to make sure that everything's covered and that we can let this dry completely. Now, when it comes to our binnacle here, there's going to be some brass elements on it there, which we will hand paint that in after we've done our wood graining on it. So we'll just let all this cure before we get started on that. Now, when it comes to the wood graining, we're going to be using this artist oil paint here, and any of these oil paints will work pretty much just fine. But it is an oil-based paint. They use mostly linseed oil as a carrier for it. So we're going to put it on this little piece of cardboard here, and as you can see, it's already started to leach out a little bit there, and that's why we want to put it on cardboard. We want it to leach out as much of that oil as we possibly can. That way we don't have any real issues later on when it comes to drying. So I will tell you that I let this cure overnight because I wanted that white to be fully cured. And now we can just remove our handle here, that medicine bottle, from underneath there that we have the lid stuck to the inside there. That just makes it much easier for us to be able to flip this over and handle it and get our masking tape on. So I'm masking up the white because the under edge here of the deck is going to be a different color. And I don't want to use any real sharp metal objects here just to press our masking tape down, but we do need a good seal along that edge there so we don't get any overspray up underneath it there, because white is very, very difficult to touch up. And I'm going to do my best here to make sure that we don't have any areas to touch up there. We also need to mask up the top section here. I think the instructions call this the engine room area, but I don't know for sure. But at any rate, it is also white, just like the sides of the all the sides of the superstructure, to include the bridge. So we're going to mask that up so that it's protected. And then I'm going to come along with some paper towel or paper napkin. and I've cut these into strips, and we're going to protect the rest of it from overspray with this. And I'm using the Tamiya masking tape to secure that. Now, in the event we get some little, puckers where the masking tape wants to buckle on us a little bit, that's okay. Just take your fine tweezers and kind of pinch that off so that we don't get any overspray seeping down and getting onto our white paint, because we really want to keep that protected as much as we can. And that's what it looks like with that masked up. So the next item that we need to mask up is going to be our bridge section. Now, I'm not going to put you through the torture of watching me try to mask this, but let's take a look at it there once it's masked up. And you can see I have left a strip just underneath the windows here on our bridge, which we are going to paint that red. It has a nice red stripe around there, so I hope I got that masking straight enough so it'll look good. Now, we do have one little area there where the masking tape didn't cover, and I just used that liquid mask to fill that so that we don't have any little spots that we have to clean up later. Next up, we're going to be using this Gloss Enamel by Deco Art. It's a craft paint, and it is water-based as well. But once it dries, it's supposed to be nice and glossy. And I've mixed that up and thinned it for our airbrush using the same Vallejo airbrush thinner that we've been using all along. So we have these red accents here on our tugboat. And this is a drip shield or a spray shield. I don't know exactly what it's called, but it goes right around the front edge here of the lower superstructure. So we're just going to lay that paint on right there in a nice thin coat. And it's important to remember that this is going to take several coats because you don't want it to look pink. We want it to be a nice deep red. So we're just going to spray it very carefully, and it seems to be drying pretty quick. Now, it looks a little splotchy when it goes on, but it dries and it thins itself out and levels really nice. So we'll do this part here, and then we're going to alternate back to our bridge section here, which has that same accent right around the top of the windows there for our bridge. And we also have that little accent stripe that goes underneath the windows in the bridge. So we will go ahead and coat that as well. And we're just going to lay it on nice and thin there. Don't want to concentrate on any one little spot. Just keep your airbrush moving. And if there's any little spots that needs to be touched up, we'll get that in the next 2 or 3 coats. Now, while we're letting those dry a little bit there, we can go ahead and do our doors, because all of these doors that's on the lower superstructure are all red. And I think it's a nice look to our tugboat, so we're going to do these up with the red as well. And we'll get us a good coat on it there. And then we'll go ahead and switch up to the next items, which are the portholes that goes up on the upper deck. And then, of course, we have some window frames as well that goes on the side of the bridge section. So we'll get us a nice little coat of red there. Now, we're just going to lay it on and make sure that we're just getting it covered. And then we're going to switch back up. We'll go back to the lower superstructure and then to the bridge section. And then we'll come back to the doors and then back to these windows and portholes here and get us about 3 or 4 good coats on it there so that they all look the same. And we've got a nice coverage there. So I'm going to use that licorice black. This is that satin black that we used for our funnel, and we're going to use that to paint the windows and our portals here. I'm just dropping in into the center there and kind of pushing the paint around. That way the actual bristles of the brush aren't making contact. We're just kind of moving it around. That way we got a nice clean edge. And if you haven't tried this, then by using the mixture for our airbrush, it works pretty good. And this is only a one coat, and I think that's going to get it. So that's got really good coverage. So while we're doing the portals, we'll need to do the windows also that goes to the bridge. And same thing here. We'll just push the paint around the edge there, and it helps to keep rotating the workpiece. That way you're not getting your bristles up against the opposite side, which would be, well, that would be bad because we have to get black paint on our red there. And as you can see here, this is the windows all painted up, and we're going to go ahead and let those dry. And we also have done the portals. All of those are done, and we'll set those aside so those can dry as well. And kind of an afterthought, I noticed that we actually have two windows here in the little side doors going to the bridge. So those little windows need to be painted up. So we got that done. So we've been letting our oil paint set for a few hours, and you can see it's kind of leached out quite a bit of that linseed oil there. And I'm just going to use enamel thinner here as a carrier. You can use odorless thinner too. And we're just going to kind of make it back into a paint, more or less. So what we're doing is we are applying these pigments over top of that khaki color that we used as our base. We just need to make sure that we put this pigment on pretty much a nice even coat, and I'm going to let it kind of set off a little bit, let most of this enamel thinner go ahead and evaporate off of it. And we need to do this with all of our wooden parts, which was the post for our ship's wheel. Here is our binnacle. Now the binnacle is the part that holds our compasses, and we'll go ahead and put that on the post of it there. Just get those pigments on, and we'll also cover the ship's wheel with those pigments. And don't forget about the back side of the wheel. Actually, this would be the front side. This is the side of the ship's wheel that's actually facing forward. And we can do the doors as well. Just getting these pigments on here, and your final strokes on it should be kind of in line with like the grain of the wood. That will help in the long run. And don't forget about the edges as well, because that's going to be right up against that white paint that we have on our bridge section. And we don't want any missed spots there. So what I'm using here is just a toothpick or cocktail stick, whichever you prefer. And I'm just dipping it into the enamel thinner a little bit there. And we can just drag this along very gently, because we don't want to scratch through all of our paint down to the plastic. We're just removing these pigments here, kind of creating some wood grain here. Now you can use a brush to do this, but these parts are so small that it's just really much easier to use a toothpick to do this. And we're just kind of drawing in our wood grain on the part there. So this is the post that holds the ship's wheel. I'm not sure what it's called. I'm sure it has a name. I just don't know what it is. But that's the wood graining effect that we got there. And we went ahead and did our doors too, kind of changing up the direction of the wood grain for the center panels for the doors, and then catching a little bit of grain down the stiles and rails of the actual doors. So yeah, that's looking pretty good. Now we're going to have to let this dry at least 24 hours because it is oil paint, and then we'll coat it. So next up, we're going to use a little bit of panel liner. Now this is Tamiya's black panel liner that I'm using here, and I do like to thin it out because I think it's just a little bit too thick for what I'm looking to do. And we'll be using it on the doors here. Now these are the red doors that go to the lower section of our superstructure, and this panel liner here will help enhance the little bitty details that we've got going on there. So I'm using a long bristled pointy brush to do this. Kind of helps me target those little areas so that I don't have too much cleanup to do later. And it does really want to actually follow the joint that I want to get this panel liner into right away. It usually takes a little bit so that there's plenty of the panel liner loaded up into the brush, and then it really starts to flow much better there. So as you can see, we've got the one door done off onto the far right there, and that makes it look less like a toy, more like a door. So I'll go ahead and finish up all these other doors here. And it's inevitable that we're going to have some panel liner in places that we don't want it. So a little bit of enamel thinner will clean that up, because the panel liner is an enamel product, and we're applying it over top of water-based enamel. And I don't think it's going to interact with it. I hope not anyway. I guess we'll find out. So moving on to our lower superstructure and the bridge section here. And what I'm going to do here is I need to prepare it for painting the decks on these. So I need to mark right where the wings off the bridge end, or get it as close as I can, because we've got everything kind of masked up right now, and you can't really see the end of it. But this will enable us to find a starting point here where I can lay down some masking tape. Now this is 1mm masking tape that I'm using, and the reason why I'm doing it this way is so that the red from that nice red shield that we got going around the front of the lower superstructure there, that seam will be hidden up underneath the bridge section, and we won't have any gaps there where the paint doesn't really match when we go to assemble this. So we'll just go ahead and put this on both sides, and then we can go ahead and mask up all the red there and get it ready for painting those grays and everything that we need to do later. So this is the bridge section all masked up there. So we covered up that red stripe that goes around it there. So we don't want to get any overspray on that, as well as the upper edge there. We got that masked off too, so we don't have to worry about having overspray there. And then this is all the masking that we've got done on the lower superstructure. Now this little eave that kind of sticks out there, that's all going to be painted a different color. We're just going to start off probably with the black, I think, to trim that out. And we're going to have to trim the edges out, of course, on the funnel deck. And this is the black that we're going to be using. This is just Vallejo flat black, and we'll use that up underneath those edges. And we'll just very carefully lay that in. I don't want to lay it in too thick here, because there might be some gaps in our masking, and we don't want that kind of leaking down into onto the white there. We're doing everything we can to protect the white we can there. And we'll go ahead and dress up the edges. And then also on the deck here, we're going to shade in, and this is pre-shading, shade in where the rails are going to be, because there wouldn't be any foot traffic there, so the paint on this deck would be darker in those areas, and then right up close to where any of the other walls or elements are protruding up off of this superstructure here. Now I am going to be leaving the areas, well, most of the area where there's going to be a lot of foot traffic on these decks, without giving them a coat of black there, so they'll be lighter. So when we lay in our next color, we'll have some pre-shading there. So we're going to do the same thing with the cockpit area. Cockpit. Think we got a flying boat here. So the same thing with the deck above the bridge. Yeah, just like so. Now we do have the funnel deck to take care of too, so I just want to make sure that we're covered on the edges there. So once it's assembled, we don't have any of that gray primer showing through. And then we'll do the same thing as we did on the other two decks, just leave a little area that we don't fill in, give us a little bit of color variation there. So this is the same gray that we used on the main deck, and we'll be using that on the other decks as well. Just make sure that it's shaken up really good, because it has been sitting for a little while, so we want to make sure that that pigment is well suspended there. And now we'll just go over all these decks here and paint them up gray. Now once that's dry, we're going to do the same thing as we did to the main deck. We will give it a coat of this gloss, and it's just one thin coat to kind of give it a satin look. That way it all matches with the rest of the build, everything that we've done previously. And then we can go ahead and start unmasking and see what we got to fix. So sometimes it's a little suspenseful here. See how everything comes out. I think we're going to be all right, but let's just pull off all this masking tape and see what we need to attend to. Yeah, there are a couple of little areas that we need to take care of. That liquid mask, I need to get some water and remove that. And with that accomplished, we can go ahead and start trimming out our portals here, or portholes. And of course, it really helps if you got a nice steady hand, which I'm kind of struggling with this right now, but I don't recommend doing this after 3 or 4 cups of coffee. That probably would not work out well. So we're going to get these trimmed out and then get the inside portion here of these portholes painted in the red as well. So I'm looking at our doors here. And, well, they weren't well molded to begin with, and we did have to fill some of the ejector pin marks that was in the center of these doors. So I think in order to keep a lot of that from being visible, we're going to make up some semi-gloss here. So just half of the matte and half of the gloss Vallejo clear coat there. And I think this is going to work, so we're going to go ahead and spray that. And while we're at it, we need to go ahead and coat all of our wood graining here to protect that and seal those pigments in so they won't rub off on us or onto anything else for that matter. So that came out pretty good. As you can see here, we've got a semi-gloss going there, so all of those little bitty imperfections don't really show up, and they're not really glaring. So we'll be able to put these on now. So the way these go, the hinges go forward, okay, towards the bow, and we'll just put those on and put a little bit of, to me, extra thin there. I think that'll be more than enough to secure the doors. You could always use CA glue as well to fix that. And it's starting to shape up there. So we'll go ahead and get all these doors on. So with the doors on, I've got some more of that clear Lexan that we used to do the windows in the bridge section. So we just need some little squares here that we're going to cement over the back side. And I'm just checking the fit there. And of course, while I'm doing this, we're going to be using CA glue to do that. But it's going to be really close work, and you're not going to be able to see what I'm doing. So I'm going to go ahead and get these glued in with some CA glue there. And while we're doing it, we also are going to do this sort of like skylights for our engine room section there. And you can see we'll get that little shine there. And this is the medium CA glue that we're going to be using to secure all of these clear parts. So yeah, and this kit doesn't come with any clear parts. So if you want to have glass in them, you've got to make them yourself. So that went really well and really quick. And as you can see, they are just a square piece. You don't have to try to fit it to it. We're just cementing it to the inside there of the structure. So I'm going to blacken these out, and this is that black licorice color that we use to paint our funnel with. And it really goes, this is just the airbrush mixture that I'm using here, and I think we're only going to need one coat. It really, really does cover well. So I'm just going to brush this on to each and every one of these. That way we don't get that see-through effect, you know, where we can see through to the other side, because there's really nothing inside here to actually look at. So if we blacken this out, I think it's going to look so much better than if we were just to leave them clear. And I've left that one kind of not painted up yet, but you can see that clear plastic gives us the illusion of glass. And then, of course, it's blacked out so that we're not seeing inside the lower superstructure here. So I'll go ahead and paint up that last one there. So next up, we have some portals that need to go down the side here of this upper section. And I've used a piece of masking tape. And these are the little portals there. So the masking tape there, I put little tick marks on where I want to put our portals, and we're just going to cement that with the Tamiya thick cement. And we're just going to get a little dot of the thick cement there and place it center, more or less. And the reason why I'm using that thick cement is it will allow me to make small adjustments there, just in case I don't really get it in the right place. So with that one on, and I'm probably going to have to do some touch-ups, but that'll be okay, and I'll get the rest of them on. Well, okay, so we got all of our little portals there installed. The instructions calls that the engine room. I don't know if it is or not, but probably. And we got all of our doors on, and then we got our glass in, and then we painted the back sides of them there to kind of block off the light transfer, you know, so that we don't get any light inside there, because there's nothing inside here to see anyway. So just looks blackened out. So that looks pretty good. And so we're moving along, and we also have somewhere here, we've painted up the bridge section as well. So that's all basically ready to go. We still have to put the glass in it and all that. We'll do that in the next video. We haven't put our railing on or anything like that, because the lower superstructure section here, when we go to put the bridge on, we actually need to clamp it, and we're going to need this space here and then up front here to kind of clamp it down when we go to glue it. But we can't put that on yet until we get the ship's wheel in and the binnacle and all that. So yeah, we're going to have to do that in the next video. So just to give you a little look here at the nice contrast we got going on here. So our tugboat's shaping up, looking pretty good, and we'll do some weathering too. So that's going to be it for this video. Hope you guys enjoyed it. Special thanks to all my subscribers. It's because of you guys I keep making these videos, and I hope that you've enjoyed this one. If so, don't forget to give the video a like. And if you are new to the channel and not a subscriber, I hope today I earned your subscription. So stay with me with the build, and we'll see how close we get to finishing this up. It shouldn't be too much longer. All right, so you guys stay safe, and I'll see you next Friday.